album concept hour. The album concept hour. It's the album concept hour.
All right, welcome everybody to the Album Concept Hour podcast. I am your host, Brad LeBaron, and I am here with my co-host, Dave Gallagher. What's going on, Dave?
Hello.
And we have a returning guest who was on for was it the Mars Volta episode?
It was.
That's correct.
The Mars Volta episode, one of our higher performing
Popular.
episodes. Yeah. People seem to like the Mars
People
Volta
love Mars Volta.
and our take on it. So we have him back. Welcome, Ben Birkinbine. I almost said
Very
Bird
good.
Benenbine or something.
Bird Benenbine? Yeah,
Bird
I'll take
Benden
anything. That's great.
Bean.
Yeah.
We already,
but,
we already have a Ben at home. When you
yeah.
get home, burn Birkinbine.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to add to the pile of mispronunciations, but you are back, and we are excited to have you back to talk about the Appleseed Casts Low-Level Owl Volumes 1 and 2.
A two-parter.
It's a two-parter. So prepare yourselves, everyone. This is going to be a two-part episode, and we're actually going to try to live up to the title of the podcast for once. We're going to try to do about an hour each for these two for you guys.
Enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy. And just before we get started, I want to preface this episode with a quote that I found from an article regarding this album, and this is Kurt Morris in his review for it said, "This is definitely not an album to be picked apart song by song." So we're going to challenge that notion. We are going to pick apart song by song, and we're gonna see how it goes. First half we got 14 tracks, and then the second album we got 12 tracks. So I guess one more thing to preface though. What's your guys' connection to Appleseed Cast? Dave, you were telling me that Ben
It was Ben who introduced me
introduced
to this band, especially starting off with this album. I believe we were in Chicago at your place, and you like, "Hey guys, have you heard of this band before?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, check this out.
And you dropped it, and it blew my mind.
Yeah. What do you remember from that, Ben?
Yeah, so this album came along at a very important an important point in my life, and I was in college at the time, but I was also simultaneously in a band that was based out of Madison. So I remember driving. So I went to college in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the drive from Green Bay to Madison is about 2 hours, give or take.
Oh, really?
And it released in 2001, and it was at a time when I was having a particularly difficult time in college. I think it's what they call the sophomore slump.
Yes.
And
the sophomore slump of life.
And I was very emo at that time, and I was like very angry. And I was in a screamo band at the time called Castor Troy. And
hell yeah.
and I was traveling back and forth from Green Bay to Madison, and I could not stop listening to this album. I think this was the soundtrack basically for my commute for those couple hours.
Yeah.
And it just was like, it came along at the right time, and it was unlike other stuff I was listening to at that point. And whereas we were doing more kind of like hardcore screamo music, this was definitely a departure from that. Although if you look at the Appleseed Cast's earlier albums, you could see where some of that connection came from, because before this, they were a little bit more angry, a little bit more there and there. And then they started to hone their style. And then these two albums dropped, and it was just like, what is this? Like, what's going on with this sonic like richness?
Yeah, that was one. I think that's one of the great things about some of those bands in that time is, since they kind of hit some level of popularity pretty early in their lives, they're all still adolescents, and then you get to see them literally grow through their music. And then, getting to this point where you have, they've dealt with some of their anger, they've kind of experienced some life and come out on top. So, but we're probably not going to tarry very further in the intro here, just because we have a lot of tracks to get to. But I'm sure we'll talk about a lot more of this as we're going on the podcast.
Tracks.
Yeah.
And also, can I just share one other thing too?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I also have plenty of memories of seeing this band live before we jump into this. But before we even get into the music, like the covers of the album are just fairly minimalistic if you haven't seen them.
Very
and
much
it's just,
so, yeah.
Low Level Owl Volume 1 has one feather, and then Volume 2 has two feathers on a white background. But there's this kind of fine print at the bottom where they list all the track names.
Yeah.
But then after that, there's this long description about like the production and how it's best consumed.
Huh.
And I just remember reading this and being fascinated by this.
Okay.
So I feel like it was the guitar player at one of their live shows. I just said, hey, what's going on with this thing? Like, should I really be listening to it with these like headphones? I haven't read that text for a while, so I don't know what it says, but he's like, I don't know, man. I have no idea what's on the cover of the album. And I just found that to be, it was one of the first moments where I felt like there was this really disconnect between like the artist and then like the production company and what they decided.
Well, yeah. You think that they make every single decision like purposefully.
Right. And maybe I was talking to the wrong guy. Maybe, lead singer, I should have talked to him or somebody else. But the guitar player was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I didn't even really notice until you brought that up. But yeah, there's a big block of text that I completely ignored.
Yeah, I remember all the titles. I guess I'd never read that much further. Yeah. I saw there was a description on that.
I just assumed it was regular credit type stuff. Like, let me put some of the credits on the front.
Right. It actually says here, it's recommended and preferred that you listen to these recordings with dynamic monitor, gimbal suspension headphones. High quality, low noise, high output, stereophonic audio components will provide the optimal desired effect. If dizziness or faintness occurs, discontinue use. And it goes on. There's even more after that. But I'm like, what is this? Are they being serious right now?
Okay, well, then that means we're not technically listening to this in the proper format, but we're getting as close as we can. I got the best headphones that I can afford right now, but I don't know if I've suspended gimbal headphones money yet. Maybe when we get Space Ghost on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of a quick warning on the Flaming Lips, it was the full four volume, but it was 4 separate records. You're supposed to play all records at the same time on different players, and to make your own album. There is a warning, basically, like, not to listen to it while driving. It was like I wish I gotta find, when we take a break.
How would you listen to it while driving?
You could re-record somehow, but basically there's like some weird sounds on it that are not meant to be listened to while driving. Apparently.
Well, I mean, it's probably like one of those things, like with the
unless you get a Winnebago and put 4 stereos in it and just start going down.
Well, that old movie of the train coming at the audience. They probably had to have some sort of warning for that, because it's just something that was too far ahead of their time. They couldn't comprehend.
Dear 1930s people, don't worry about this train. It's just a movie.
Yeah. And just like in the future, we will all be used to quad records in all of our vehicles too. Maybe that's something we can revisit as a society. We can go back to see what's going on there. Right. But let's get into a track, guys. We got 14 tracks to get through on this first part here. This first track is "The Waking of Pertolette." Here we go. Oh, hold on. So yeah, that was "The Waking of Pertolette." Now, we should preface these couple of episodes. This is like it's vocals and lyrics are kind of secondary in this songwriting style. Like there's a lot of instrumentals in here, and there's a lot of really long, jammy parts. So I feel like this track is kind of like letting you know as a listener, like, hey, if you're not in for this, you're probably not going to be in for some of the other stuff that's about to happen.
It's like sets the mood for the entire album. Just like, all right, just relaxing. Like, what's
going
on? What's happening?
Yeah. I did not listen to instrumental music back when this was happening. It's one of my big regrets, because listening to this, it's like, oh, I would have absolutely loved this if I listened to all these tracks. Yeah. I think that most people don't have those kinds of hang-ups, and you can really appreciate this album if you listen to it start to finish. But yeah, The Waking of Pertolette. Do you guys know what Pertolette is?
I do not.
Okay,
and because there are no. Do you? I'm just curious if you.
I did a little bit of research and found out it's actually from a not Aesop's Folks Tales, Canterbury Tales. It's from a story called The Nun's Priest, and it's about a rooster and a chicken and a fox, and basically the fox like takes the rooster, but then like brags about it, and while he's bragging about it, the rooster gets away. It's one of those fox being arrogant and loses his meal things.
That's a dumb bastard.
Yeah, every culture I think has a variation of that story, you know. Yeah, so I guess I don't know what reference, what significance that has to the rest of all of this, but that is the only like instance of Pertolette I could find. Actually, when you Google it, you see this more than the Canterbury Tales story. So
yeah, and I guess for this one, like especially since I wasn't aware of the reference, I mean, the thing that I focus more on in the title is just the waking part, and I do really feel like this album begins to like, it's almost like waking up, because there's this sort of atmospheric loops that kind of bring you in. Then a light guitar starts this one very simple riff, but then eventually it carries you through towards this transition. It's just this very nice awakening and kind of sweeping you into the album and the soundscape, which then later will kind of break into a little bit. It'll kind of come in waves a little bit more and kind of erupt a little bit more in subsequent tracks. But I found it very peaceful and very calming, this intro, and it's a great intro track to this kind of broader project.
Yeah, and for me, it just gives me, being that it's starting to get cold out, it really makes me feel like the fall and winter months. This is, kind of, it definitely has like that Midwest kind of melancholy vibe to it, but I feel like it definitely feels like a winter project, Does that make sense?
Fall and winter for sure.
Yeah.
I definitely get fall vibes from
definitely not spring and summer,
right.
But yeah. Like, I mean, I could almost see it being a leaf rather than a feather on the cover. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that would visibly like make the same amount of sense to me.
Falling feathers among falling leaves, or something like that. And they're from. We could say here that the band is from Lawrence, Kansas, as well. Yeah. So they do have at least the
Midwest,
the middle states. Those square middle states of the Midwest area.
Yeah. Apparently, they started out in SoCal, but they reestablished in Kansas. Probably because like everyone was like, "Oh man, that sound, man, you should be in Kansas." Like, I feel like that's where you fit. And they're like, yeah, this is probably right.
You're not a surf band, are you?
yeah, definitely not a surf band. So they had to get out of SoCal because SoCal does not, tolerate non-surf music.
There was we should also just say, like, outside of Appleseed Cast, there was a pretty vibrant music scene in Lawrence, Kansas there for a while, and particularly with like within the kind of emo scene, there was some pretty.
Because there was the Lawrence Arms, right?
Well, Lawrence Arms are from Chicago, but Lawrence, Kansas, I believe, also had. There's at least like a record label there. There's this guy Ed, and he worked on this record. And Ed Rose, I think his name is.
Okay.
And so his studio there was pretty famous. So they worked also with like the Casket Lottery, I think, and maybe Planes Mistaken for Stars. They were also on Deep Elm Records.
Yeah.
So there's some others that come from out of that scene.
Well, why don't we get to another track? This is actually number 84 on Vulture's top 100 emo songs of all time. This is On Reflection.
It's like the layered vocals kill me in this.
Yeah, I like that they're like not really loud.
No.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and on this track for me, the first thing that really caught me, I mean, I love just the layering of everything, because you start with that really interesting kind of soft track, and then what ushers in the beginning of this track is when the drums kick in. The drums kind of do a little something, and then eventually other instruments are added. But the drumming, and this will be a common theme I think throughout all of it, the drumming is very unique without being like over the top,
without being like pretentious.
It's none of that, but also when I saw them live, I realized that it's the way that the drummer had his kit set up was a little bit different, that would allow him to make this kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it because I'm not a drummer, but there's almost like this this quick transition off a cymbal that is constantly done, that I've only heard it on this album. I haven't heard that,
like just kind of almost like a constant kind of use of it going on.
It's like use of it, but it's almost like it's almost like a kind of shimmers in a way, and then he comes back to it. I don't even know the technique. I'm failing at describing drum.
Well, I mean, drumming is a mystery to us all. I think it's it's. I don't understand how they decide all the sounds they put on their drum set, but
I feel like I should.
It's always amazing.
Drumming, literally the beginning of music, but
that's a good point. But this is definitely a lot of, the drummer is fantastic for this group. I am loving everything I'm hearing. Very much like the post-hardcore kind of stuff that I would listen to. They would refer to themselves as post-rock sometimes, so maybe it's just like post-whatever groups is what I was into, I guess. But this is, by the way, I'll say early on in this, it's kind of hard to capture the kind of grand scope of the Appleseed cast in these clips, so I will highly recommend like listening to these ones start to finish. Like Kurt Morris said, it's kind of a weird to break it down, break it apart, because it feels like
it's such a giant soundscape that if you're not paying attention, you have no idea when the next song actually, when one ends and one begins, because it feels like it's just flowing from one to the next. And you're like, if you don't pay attention, you're like, oh, already track 3, cool.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at all.
In that sense, I often think of like each song as just like a different movement in this broader like full length musical exploration. And then even within each song, to your point, Brad, it's like there are different movements and different like swells of music, and then they sort of subside for a little bit, and it just kind of rolls on. It's like waves washing over you.
Wait, I think Dave was using that analogy before we got on mic, weren't you? I think in the living room you were using that analogy. Yeah. So that's pretty much how Dave described it. So I think that you must be onto something. Let's get on to another track though. We're not going to focus too much on lyrics in this episode or anything. If you're a lyrics guy, because this is more feelings and vibes, and
it's some pretty solid lyrics, but it's nothing like
there's great lyrics.
It's not like it's like deep informing like a story by.
I think there's a lot of, they seem very personal and very much like, if you don't have the context, it's like, it might not mean as much to you, whatever. But
you can almost like make your own story, really, just with like the sound. It's like when you put this on, like I could lay on the couch and just like stop, almost like focus on the lyrics at times, and you just start like your mind starts flowing. You start like almost like thinking about yourself, and you just have like your own like thoughts and emotions just rolling through.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of starts away thoughts for you. It like prompts you or something.
I would agree with that. And the other thing I'll add here about the lyrics specifically is that I almost feel like the lyrics are in themselves, like they don't tell it this big story, like we just said, like in the way that last time I was on Mars Volta was just like rich with lore and like interpretation.
That was a very thick story.
But in this one, I do think that the music is doing most of the talking, but that when there are lyrics, they almost seem to be like fragments of a memory, or like sort of episodic like moments
like
in the singer's life, where he's talking about walking away, or she did this or he did that, but it's kind of all about interpersonal relationships, potentially, but these like fragments of memories that kind of pop in, you know, those like profound moments in life.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of which, there's this is the next track, Blind Man's Arrow, and I think I remember enjoying the lyrics to this one. I love it when people take the vocals and treat them with just the same amount of respect in the mix as everything else, because vocals are always given like, you know, top billing when it comes to like mixing, you know. But yeah, I really appreciate when they use it like an instrument.
They do,
you know. Which they very much do.
Like lows, highs, it flows like it's just like a wave. Like most of the sounds, like they'll sing like they're almost like matching like the key of the guitar or anything that's happening.
Yeah. Like they're finding each other's like what each other's doing, and then like connecting, and then like, you know, it's trippy stuff, guys.
And I do think that was a great clip to showcase at least one of the other things that the Appleseed cast does a lot, which is just that kind of relatively simple. It's only a few notes, but the guitar line that just repeats and repeats and repeats. And then around that's sort of a constant line, but then around that sort of swelling again. And then right at the end of that clip is where they go into this other part. And it's almost like,
they do that. They have that a lot.
Part, you know?
Yeah. Which is, again, that's one of the things that's hard to capture here. There's a lot of really cool transitions. There's a lot of like really like, there's parts that take a little while to get to the part that you're, you know, that you remember or whatever. It's kind of like Mogwai a little bit. Like that's really like that's the band I was thinking about the most listening to all of this, is like probably earlier Mogwai, because like earlier Mogwai they had about this ratio of like songs with vocals to songs without. It was more about the long jams that led up to like big crazy things, and the payoff is just, you know, great. You know, you listen to a 9-minute song, you don't regret having listened to a 9-minute song. Although that is something they get, as far as the reviews that I saw, that, you know, some people will say that this is, you know, repetitive, or you know, doesn't have too complex of like guitar work, but I don't know. I think that
it's not complex, but it's simple. But yet, in the same time, it seems very complex for what they're doing almost.
Mm-hmm. Because the layering, like you were saying,
it's so easy. But again, there's more than it seems like that's actually there.
And they use a lot. And I would also say that they use, like, the parts are sort of technically simple. I do think that's the case, but the way that they're layered and the way that they're looped and then connect those, at least like the resonance of those sounds, like with other things like tape loops or, you know, other sorts of things, just creates this like soundscape that is much more rich and kind of deep, you know, rather than just a single guitar or what the guitar player, you know, the fact that the guitar player is not shredding doesn't ruin this for me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm coming to the Appleseed cast for.
And I don't know. I feel like after like the 80s or so, people were just sick of shredding on the guitar. It just seems like it's not done much. You know, it's done sometimes, but like, I don't know.
Well, and to your point, that really was the response of post rock. Like there were all these conventions of rock music that it had to be 4/4, and you had to have these certain elements. And then post rock started like betraying those conventions and saying, no, we can have like long songs. We don't have to have solos. We don't have to have a singer, you know? And so that's why you know, you get some more interesting kind of experimentation with music and just creating stuff. I had a crazy thought, and maybe as long as I'm thinking about this now, I just thought about this morning when I was kind of preparing for the episode, but in some way, and tell me if you guys think I'm wrong, but in some way I almost might describe the Appleseed cast as like emo music's Pink Floyd.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah. And not in the sense that like there's, you know, this kind of trippy, longer concept behind it, but that just the approach to music and thinking about this, at least these two, as a full album. And this is like a journey through, you know, 2 volumes of this one album.
Yeah. Like I think that if you knew the members or whatever of this band, like you could follow like whatever internal journey that they are having at this point. But it does seem like they keep like specifics pretty close to the chest. These guys, like they're not out there giving out like specific details about their life necessarily. It's a little more vague than that. But this track, I do want to mention one line in this track just because it maybe references a track on the second volume. But he says, I fell down this daylight, blind man's arrow, buried in my love's heart, tape was wound. Now, I don't know what any of this means, but there is a different track on the album where he references someone firing an arrow into his beloved's heart. So I got to assume that means something to him or something, but I'll be honest, I have no idea.
Maybe it's just a lot of bows and arrows flying around in Kansas.
Yeah, like I guess. I didn't think it was anything until it was like referenced again. So I don't know. Maybe we'll stumble upon something in the coming track or something.
We'll bring it back.
Or if someone's listening, you know a little more. If you're an Appleseed cast fanatic out there and you have some facts about this album, we're always down to hear more facts after we're done with it. This next track though we have we actually have an example of these transitions we're talking about. We have track 4 going into track 5. So this is Flower Falling from Dying Hands into Messenger. Man, you know what that actually made me think of just then? Childish Gambino's earlier stuff. He kind of has that kind of like weird ambiance between like
chiming, droning.
Yeah, like this, but with I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I could see all of that in an early Childish Gambino song. But he was probably into this stuff. He was into like Sufjan Stevens and a lot of that cool, maybe emo adjacent stuff from the 2000s. So he's probably heard this. I would guess.
If not, he would probably love it.
Yeah, he'd love it. If you know Childish Gambino, let him know. Appleseed Cast. He'd probably dig it.
So a track, I believe it's 4, 5, and 6 are all like just little instrumental pieces.
Oh, so are they all okay? So they're all
4, 5, and 6
lumped together in this part. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because like part 2 is like is definitely the more instrumental side of this double album, but yeah, it is like a big interlude here.
It's almost like if they try and take like volume 1 and make it into like 2 parts, it's sort of like the transition between like the two sides of almost like one album.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, because they were released. One was released in August of 2001, and the other was released in October of 2001. So there is a little bit of a gap too.
Yeah, and I would also just say that these instrumental tracks, it's also a lot of like, especially like loops here and like tape delay kind of stuff that's going on. And again, it's just very atmospheric. And the Messenger song, the one that we transitioned into, is only like 45 seconds or 47 seconds long.
Yeah.
So that leads immediately to like another instrumental track as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Like if it was only like 15 seconds long, I could have gotten you guys that whole transition, but it was just a little bit too long.
But again, that transition that we just listened to, and I'm not sure if this is at the beginning of the next song or at the end of the Messenger track, but the drums again just cut through a lot of this atmospheric stuff to provide another transition.
Yeah.
Really nice.
The drums are always like, you almost forget about them. You almost forget about how good this drummer is, and then he shows up again.
Well, and that's where I think, like, especially when you're creating, like, those atmospheric moments that we're talking about, that kind of just delays and everything else.
Yeah.
The listener just kind of gets lost, and you kind of get into your own head. And then the drums have a way of like bringing you back down to like, you know, reality, or punching you out of it in a little bit and be like, no, just remember, you know, life is happening. You can't be in your head,
wake up,
you know, forever.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good way to say it. I think when the drums come in, it might be doors lead to nowhere, or doors lead to questions. So let's listen to doors lead to questions.
They always do.
Words. I was pretty sure I had a drum clip for you guys. Yeah. I think every time the drums show up and do something cool, I clipped it. So
and that clip again is a great example of, so it's relatively simple, right? But there's effects on the drums. I'm not sure if that's like reversed or it's just tape.
I think they reversed. I think they did a reverse on it. Yeah.
So to reverse the tape, but then you have like two guitar notes. So again, he's not shredding, but there's just an effective use of just like boom.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it. And it's like, okay,
hypnotizing kind of.
I'm being pulled one way by like reverse drums, and then there's this other thing that's kind of driving me forward.
Yeah. And if you could miss the reverse drums too. Like they sound like normal enough that you could totally miss it. But they're doing so many cool just mixing tricks throughout.
And there we should really, you know, provide props to, I mean, not only Deep Elm Records for releasing, but I think it is Ed Rose is the guy. So the production is really nice.
Yeah, it looks like Ed Rose here.
And so those workers deserve their, you know, their craft to be acknowledged as well here.
Okay, so he worked with the modern emo and pop punk scenes. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I'd love to hear some pop punk produced by this guy. I bet it's like quality pop punk.
Hi guys, this is the daughter of Lilith, and you're listening to the Album Concept Hour.
And actually, just as I mean, I don't know if we're doing plugs, but the guy that I was in the Screamo band with studied with Ed Rose and now started his own music studio.
That's pretty cool.
And he's got his own music project called Often the Thinker. If people are in the mood for,
is that his band right now?
Instrumental post rock that is really nice.
And what's his studio?
The name of the studio is 1221 Music Studio, Recording Studios in Oceanside, California.
It's a good title.
I'm not making an announcement, but I may or may not be working on an album myself with that person.
Okay. Well,
stay tuned, everybody.
We may or may not have to have you back when you may or may not have a thing to promote.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh man, this is great. We're like, I'm gonna get Engineer Jordan back when she does, you know, has her album come out, man. Whenever Inspector 34 gets another one, man, we're gonna have him back. Can't wait. So much good music coming our way. But maybe not. I don't know. But doors lead to questions. That's something we know for sure. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what questions they lead you to.
It might lead to the next song.
It might lead to the next song. Steps and numbers. You open the door, you see some steps. Maybe you feel like you got to count them. Yeah, here's steps and numbers. Man. That's one of my favorites, I think, of the ones I've heard on, especially Volume 1.
And I'll also say, I think that particular hook, those lyrics often get just stuck in my head, you know, stand and dance with. Yeah.
It's like one of the few times they have like a part like that. You know, it's not really a singing in your kitchen kind of music, but here you can kind of like, get it stuck.
It's so subtle and simple. Again, like just like their sound of the band, but it's just the repetitive. Like, you can't help but like start like bobbing your head and like stand there, dance,
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do either of you have the lyrics to this song up? Because I'm pretty sure the way that I've understood it is stand. Hold on.
Stand there.
Yeah, stand and dance with the memory because it's all over now.
That's pretty much it. Stand there, dance with the memory. The caption reads, "It's all over now."
The caption reads, "It's all over now."
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah.
I also really liked the intro lyrics here. Are you wishing on a star? Did you know your dreams are sold to people who dream only of gold? They'll find a way to pull stars down.
It's greedy fuckers.
And going to your point with like it being the Pink Floyd of maybe emo bands, like that's very much a pointing at the greed of the system and being like there's consequences to selling out to the wrong people and stuff. I think they mentioned that
there
idea
is one
again. Yeah, I think that.
I can't remember what track it is.
I think it's track 2. I think track 2 might have been like the story of a musician that maybe got signed or something. I forget. That's what my notes say. If you have any thoughts on track 2 on reflection, I think they talk a little bit about this as well. But yeah, general. This is like the height of
track 2?
Understanding the corporate greed of the music industry.
Back when selling out was still a bad thing.
Yes.
Now people are all too willing to just like, whatever, take my money, Pepsi. I don't care.
Yeah. This was like before the internet kind of destroyed and restructured the music industry because
before people were brands.
Before people were brands,
or people were told that they needed to be brands. I mean, imagine somebody like in a college classroom or something telling you that you should be your own brand in the 1990s or the late 90s, early 2000s. You'd be like, you'd have a riot on your hands. Hopefully, anyways.
Yeah. No, I feel that as a content creator, I definitely feel that.
You just get a monster tattoo in your face, you'll be fine.
There we go. Maybe we'll start getting some ads that way. Besides
I think
our anchor.
Maybe the three of us should get matching feathers for the three feathers on the low-level owl.
That's not a bad idea, actually.
I just met you, Brad. I've only met you like twice.
Well, I mean,
I'm down
to get a life-changing tattoo. I'm down.
I'll get a feather every time you have me on the podcast.
There we go. Yeah.
Soon I'll be soaring like a bird.
Yeah.
Like a pilot. Every time you shoot someone down, you get like another little like.
Actually, I did hear of a cool thing. My someone that I actually used to go to high school with is in fighting, like UFC stuff, and he'll get a one of those like temporary like week tattoos or something. It's like it's on you for like a week or something. And he'll get like a new giant one every time he goes and does like a match. so every time you watch a match with him, it's like you are very confused. Like, wait a minute.
Didn't that guy have a different tattoo last time?
There?
Is that a unicorn?
Yeah. Alex Polizzi, by the way, is who we're talking about. If you're a follower of smaller time MMA guys, he's coming up. Beloit is coming up. But we have another track for you guys. This next track is track 8. Sentence. Just called Sentence. Yeah. Now that's my shit right there. That's the kind of stuff that's in all of my favorite stuff. That kind of like thoughtful, echoey, droning guitar. Like, yeah, love that stuff.
And again, very simple but effective. I mean, you've got a lot of reverb to kind of blow out the sound of just that very simple guitar, just a couple strings, but it's very effective.
Yeah, it's a really like I don't know. I always see, especially with like rock music, like there's an evolution of the technology that goes alongside of the evolution of the sound and stuff. And I feel like in the early 2000s, like you had all of the tricks at your disposal. And so, like, at that point, like you said, like, you get to a post-rock situation where it's like, all right, let's just, like, have fun and experiment with all the new tools we have.
No rules.
Yeah. Kind of like a Moody Blues, you know? A Moody Blues, you know, is a little more experimental, but with, like, a earlier tech, you know? I think that they have a very similar kind of approach to this.
Not the cliche rock band.
Yeah. Because there's the people that are in it for like the glory or in it for, the reasons other than the music. And you can usually tell when they're in it for just 100% just for the music. They're not in it for the title or the status or whatever.
Dropped their first album just called Sellouts.
Well, like the Who. They had the Who Sells Out. Draw attention to it.
Just make a bunch of fake commercials. Solid.
Yeah. If you're gonna sell out, just have fun with it, like them. And I think U2 did that at one point too. Didn't they do like a really like Hollywood like mall pop kind of album?
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I just listen to U2. You talking U2 to me? That's the only reason I know anything about U2. But I like the simplicity of the lyrics here. It really captures kind of the general feel of a lot of emo songwriters out there. The words I wrote down just seem empty there, but then he just repeats. And and then in the end he said, found the page. So, yeah, it's just, it's that feeling. It really, this whole genre of music is kind of about capturing that like feeling of self-doubt and like uncertainty in life.
I think also just these simple, like sometimes 2 or 3 word sentences they like throughout the, like not even a chorus, but just throughout the track work. They're so simple, but they work just with the music because the music is also simple as Ben explained it, but like they do a lot with it, same with the voice. But I think if you kept adding more, if it just was like this huge verse chorus, like it almost would disrupt the music in itself. Like it wouldn't match it. But I think just having this like simple little flow, kind of in the back throughout the entire like instrumental, is happening just perfect.
And he said what he needed to say. Yeah, like he doesn't have to expand on it with several verses to get that point across. He's got it across in just a few.
I do think that's a great point, Dave, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons that I love these albums so much is because whereas like previous emo artists would like tell you their story and it'd be like a lot of description, so or something very emo, like think about Mineral singing things like, I wish I could hold your head up to my heart so you could hear how much I love you. You know what I mean? Like there's that style of emo, but then there's like the Appleseed cast, which allows the listener to kind of just go into their own headspace. And then if you just give them fragments of memories or emotions or feelings or, losing memories or a dream. And it's just like, I'm being taken there within my own mind. It's like, the music is for the listener just as much as it is for the producer, like the artists.
It's like looking at just like a work of art where you're taking what they have and you're almost kind of putting your own twist. Like, well, maybe it's this. Maybe they're doing this.
Yeah. It's more of an open canvas than some other music. Like you have more interpretation at your disposal.
It's not the typical "I'm sad my mom I can't use the minivan to go to the mall" type lyrics.
I wish that they would that was actually the lyrics though. Like if they were like literally singing about my mom dropped me off with in the minivan, like that would be gold to me.
Can't go to sleepover. I got soccer practice in the morning.
Like that is what their lives were, but they would never ever admit to it.
But I'm also guessing. I'm guessing also that like nowadays we could probably find that somewhere on the internet.
Probably,
like,
probably,
there's
yeah.
Probably some young teenager out there who's like, mom wouldn't let me go to the mall.
Yeah, well, there's the like, felt emo might delete later meme where like you just post a picture of yourself being emo for a day.
And also, sorry, this is a tangent, but okay. I was just thinking that like, do you think if like this style of music were created today, it would be called the feels instead of emo? Because like there's the expression now is like I'm getting all the feels, or I'm catching feelings, or it's like
maybe vibe. Like, I would say vibe music.
Vibe.
It would probably be vibe music.
I feel like vibe is more like it depends on what kind of vibes you are looking for. But you're right. I mean, it could be vibes.
Yeah.
Post feel.
When I think about vibes, I just think about
post feel pre-vibe. I agree, Dave. Post feel pre-vibe.
Post emo vibe feel something.
Oh god!
I just feel like when I hear vibes, I think of like lo-fi, like chill.
No, I know for sure. But I've heard it more in the last like year or so. There's been more songs. They've been using the term more.
Especially like these two albums, they remind me so much of like even like a shoegaze or almost like a slow dive where you really kind of like fall into like this dark yet just I don't know, like lucid music waves. Like it's just something happening.
Lucid music waves. This next track is got some lucid music waves going on itself. Right, this is Birds of Paradise.
So good. First, great magic card. 2.
Yes.
Just so simple and repetitive, but like it's almost like you're dreaming, or you can't wake up through like almost like an alarm clock going off. Like you're just like laying there.
Yeah.
But like it's so peaceful at the same time. It doesn't. I love this track. It fits so amazingly in this album.
Was it?
I also agree with that, Dave. But there was at one point back when you could like experiment with creating your own ringtones for your phone.
Yeah.
I experimented with this, but I actually found it to be quite annoying. Like it's actually pretty annoying if you don't have that broader context. I agree with you. I think it's beautiful, and that like the chime, especially the one that's like every sixth beat.
Yeah.
It is like an alarm clock, but if you just play this for somebody without the context, like you have to go through the journey of the album to get to this point.
Definitely. Yeah. You don't want to hear this first.
Yeah. And back to the critics' point that you can't really pick out a song, and that's probably the reason why.
Yeah. If you take it out of context, it's like, what is this?
Like if you just like put like, say like you're 20 years ago and you throw your iPod on shuffle and the song just pops up, like, what the hell are you listening to?
I guarantee that I did that because I had it on my iPod and I definitely put it on shuffle all the time. I probably was just like, skip.
There are a lot of
I got 30 seconds in, I was like, skip.
There are a lot of albums and tracks that like that would pop up, be an issue. Like, oh, not right now. I don't want to listen to like "Shine on Your Crazy Diamond" like part 13 through 18. And no, just
not in the mood.
Something else right now.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of good bands that I just fucking skipped on my shuffle.
On the move.
Because Ross gave me a lot of great music, and I missed out on a lot of it that he did actually give me. But for this track, what you heard was repeated harmonics alongside xylophonic arpeggio. That's from Sarcasm on Genius. It for me, it kind of sounds like he is learning the instrument. It sounds like it's someone that is picking up an instrument they're not very familiar with and like figuring out like fun little things, So I don't know. It feels like kind of like improv in that way, Although I guess with music, it's not improv.
But also it brings into the next song really, really, really good. It's a fantastic transition to its Mile Marker.
Mile Marker, yes.
Another band from this era.
Oh. Yeah, that one's a real jam.
That's
really
another one that gets stuck in my head too. Like that riff will also get stuck in my head quite a bit.
Yeah, it is kind of a perfect like loop of that's gonna get stuck in my head. I already know. Like I can already feel it.
And again, it's just another great moment of like things that we've already talked about, where like like just with everything, when everything comes into the mix and it's all there, simple guitar loop, really great driving drums, and then like other atmospheric stuff going on at the same time, and lyrics or voice as another instrument. It's all there.
Yeah, this one is very busy compared to some of the other ones. It's got just, like you said, just so many elements happening.
Same thing, even with the lyrics. I mean, there's probably it's a beefier one, but at the same time, like they don't speed through like this. It's very like it's like slow down.
Yeah,
and like it's like a lighted road. But like as they go, they don't like they're not trying to belt out the words. They're just like throwing them just whenever they can, and just like slowly like this light little
like a verse takes a while for these guys.
It's like a little journey. Like
it's like like line, little bit of noodling, line, little bit of noodling, line.
But it works so amazing.
Yeah. I think that's part of the magic here. This one's probably the most, I think, clear meaning maybe in one of the tracks. Like, to me it feels like kind of a breakup song maybe. A smile, a fall in line, a simple song, set the time. I like this part. All comes falling down on the floor, the heart, the tangled weed, the open door, the sign, an open life is an onion skin in time.
Onion skin in time.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And then these are the that's right. And then they repeat over and over again. These are the colors and shades of a heart that is broken. I don't know. I like that it's like kind of it's like a happy sounding song about heartbreak, like when that happens. I don't know. What do you guys think about this song? Or we talked about this one enough?
Yep.
We should move on. Here's track 11. This is the track that is Convict.
Convict.
I almost said Convict. Maybe it's Convict. So soothing. I mean, this is probably obvious to anyone that's hearing this, but you could totally meditate to this stuff. Like this is like prime meditation music if you're into that sort of thing.
It's interesting because like the chimes almost do have that feeling sometime. Like, and I don't know exactly what they're using, if it's a xylophone or whatever, but there is something that it's constant, but it's not it's not constant. But they do let that just like this little ding every now and then. It just kind of keeps you there, keep you centered, right?
Yeah, and it's not too like in your face either. Yeah. It's just nice.
It's enough if you're not paying close attention, you almost like miss it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it just sits in the mix like really nicely.
But if you do catch it, like it brings you right back. Like, oh yeah, all right.
Yeah, Sufjan does this pretty good. He does this kind of sound right here.
And this is one of the longer tracks on the album, aside from like the last track. And I forget exactly how this starts. So when you deal with a longer track, I forget which movements are in this track specifically.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, this is like, is this the one that starts Jacob steps?
Yeah. This one's got some biblical references, I believe. I mean,
yeah. Jacob stands on snakes.
Yeah. Jacob and snakes. That's right. Yeah, I remember that one. And it's got kind of a like churchy vibe to it, like I mean, it's got the organ for one, so you're hearing those long like like organ,
That's right.
From church. Yeah. I love it when non-Christian acts approach this kind of sound, or not explicitly, that's not the purpose or whatever. I like it when you get that outside of church because it's a nice feel. Yeah. What was I gonna say about this one?
Warm, calming sound through the whole thing.
Oh, is this the one that mentions? Yeah. Okay, here's the other reference. He brought his bowstring tight and aimed it at the heart of my beloved. So, second reference. This is the second reference I was mentioning earlier about someone he loves being shot in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So,
blind man's arrow before.
So is that? I mean, when I read it on this one, I was like, maybe Cupid, but I don't know. That's the only like arrow and heart mythology that I know of is Cupid's arrows. So I don't know. Maybe there's some personal detail that I need to know to actually connect these together. But let's move on to another track though. We got just a couple more tracks for you guys. 3 more tracks, in fact. This next track is A Tree for Trials. Oh, speaking of convict, A Tree for Trials. So interesting. Yeah, continuing that that organ on this track, probably right on from the last track.
I feel like you're almost like alone, like a room that's like raining out. It just has this like very just dismal vibe to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like almost like the opposite of that bit from 2112 where he's like learning the guitar, or maybe a later bit in 2112 where he's sadder about stuff. But I just remember that one bit because we played it like 8 or 9 times on the podcast episode. But I love the sound of the acoustic on this, by the way. You hear just every part of it. You hear, I don't know. I love me a clean acoustic guitar. So,
and I do think that like this track in some ways, like the other stuff was more like soaring and it's felt like you were outdoors and it's a lot of like air and sound waves and everything else. This one sort of is brought back in a little bit, and maybe it's the acoustic guitar,
that's true.
but it's also just a little bit more, seems like introspective and personal rather than the big grand sort of sound.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about it that way, but you're right. It is the most like bare bones track, maybe both volumes. Like production wise, there's very little going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's still has like the characteristic like kind of reverby sounds, but you're right. There's just not like these.
Yeah.
At least that I can remember, there's not like big sweeping tape delays or loops or something else.
Yeah. So this one definitely, if you're doing a listen through, this one definitely sticks out. And then, the lyrics are, we'll just read them since there's not many here. This life goes, lullaby out of here. Smile shows, filtered sounds of fear. Back into it goes, through the trials you can't hear. So, make of that what you will. We have another track. This is Signal, track 13.
So goddamn good.
That's one of my favorite tracks on the first volume.
It's pretty
I like
sick.
that one.
It's like, especially like, I mean, all the instrumentals are everything we've talked about already, but this one's got a pretty cool story in the lyrics, I think.
And definitely one of the first tracks that really sounds like it's like from another album of theirs.
Yeah, I could see that. Like maybe an earlier written song, possibly.
It's actually a good point. I don't know if this one is, but at the end of their previous album, like, so their previous album was Mare Vitalis.
Yes.
And
which we are going to get to, by the way.
Okay.
We decided to do the two-parter route just for the listeners. We decided to do the Low Level Owl Volume 1 and 2 because we needed a two-parter, guys. So, we'll get to the other one. I know that you're probably saying right now, like, wait a minute, isn't that one a concept album? We're going to get to it. But what were you going to say about it again?
It's almost like Mare Vitalis was like the revolver to,
yes,
to Low Level Owls, Sgt. Pepper's. Like, that's the bigger, that's where they really kind of came in or whatever. But I also really like Mare Vitalis.
We listened to a few random tracks of theirs that weren't 1 and 2, just kind of put in perspective. And one of them was Fish in the Sky, and they do that thing. I can't remember the tracks, but they do on this album too, where they kind of like break it. They kind of slow down a bit, but they kind of slowly build.
Yeah.
For like good 20 seconds, and all of a sudden like the drums will kick right back in. They'll bring it right back into the song.
Yeah.
But they do that just so goddamn well as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about Fishing the Sky, and since we're not going to get there, I'll just say that one of my most shameful moments at a live concert is when I drank way too much.
Yeah.
And I started yelling Fishing the Sky at the Appleseed Fest. And I guarantee, maybe even to this day, if you ask them, hey, do you remember this drunk guy in Madison, Wisconsin who was yelling Fishing the Sky? Everybody was looking at me. And I just still think about that. And it's like, it's probably the lowest moment of my concert going experience. Like, it's the lowest moment of my concert going experience. And I still feel bad. So,
and I remember that so clearly. And
of course you do, Dave. Everybody
the best thing ever. And I don't know if they ever played it, but I don't care. Just that was fantastic.
They did not play it, and it's like people were looking like, "Okay, guy, you're being that guy." And I was like, that
I don't
guy.
think he's going to play it. Yeah. Did he ever address the crowd at any point that you remember?
I just well, I had a few followers actually that started yelling "Fishing the Sky" at one point, and I think that encouraged me even more. And I was like,
okay. Then the rest of the night, yeah, that's hilarious. Fish in the Sky. This track though, before we get out to another track, we have one more track. I just want to mention this is a very cool idea here in the lyrics that someday the sun will fall down and the waters will rise, and then as the walls fall down, the hands that built them will. And I think it's getting at society collapsing and then us building it back up and helping each other out, because it says after that, at the cost of making love, we shine the times and hide the trough. We find a way to make it run. We'll light a flame that says we are. So, it seems like a very positive message here, started with a very like apocalyptic scenario,
Well, and I do think, to your point, I think that this song also could be like kind of like a single, like because it tells a story like within the song.
Yeah,
like it has a little bit more of a traditional song than just like a bigger thing. Like you could pull this out and listen to this, and you can hear the parts. There's an introduction, and it goes places. And even the title itself, Signal, it can be used to denote something that like signifies something that will come, like destruction. But you can also send out a signal as if like something to strive towards, right? Like something to approach. Like we should approach that. Someone is signaling and calling us. They need our help. So let's go. Yeah,
definitely. All right, we got one more track for you guys. This is going to be one that you're going to hear right now, and you're going to hear a little bit of it at the beginning of the next episode. But this is A View of a Burning City, and it is track 14. Yeah, that one's very long.
It is very long, but that clip had that little drum thing, that just that little ride that he does. That I don't know how to describe it, and I don't want to try to do it a cappella. But
yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about. It's he's got his own like thing he's doing. Yeah,
we're saying is check it out, guys.
Just check it out, guys. Yeah, highly recommend this album. It's I mean we got another volume to get to, of course, but yeah, the first volume received a lot of critical acclaim. I think probably more critical acclaim than the second one, just because it came out in August. But yeah, I mean they're definitely like they should have released them together, really. Definitely better consumed, because I mean the second one, we'll get to it, but it references the last one. So I mean, yeah.
And I do think it's useful to think about them as one album. Mm-hmm. Like it really is, even if they're staggered in their release.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean at the end of it, it's a view of a burning city. So I don't know, it's kind of a vague note to leave the audience on. I'm sure that if you were actually following this and you listened to this in August, you were like, clutching your pearls for the next one. I don't know if that's the right term.
Yeah. And in this final track, it's a lot of instrumental. Is it all instrumental as well? I kind of forget.
Yes, but there is apparently someone, I think, talking in the background or something.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say, because it's like very rich. Like they just sort of swell like all of the stuff. Mm-hmm. Again, loops, delay, like
every little trick they've used all in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's very good. And then it all kind of just like the ending is very interesting, because it all just kind of like
kind of like right,
kind of like almost like trips up and just ends.
But
then
like
as we will see with volume 2 in the first track, they reprise that same theme to begin the next album.
Yeah. Well, with that, we're actually going to, I think we're just going to skip plugs for the first part of this, and you'll have to come back.
We'll plug the backside.
Yeah, you'll have to come back for the second part if you want to get all the proper plugs. So, otherwise, though, thanks for listening. We will see you next week. It's going to be moments for us, but a week for you. Happy Thanksgiving and Indigenous Peoples Days. And we will see you next time. The Album Concept Hour is Brad LeBaron, Dave Gallagher, John Aker, and Jake the Snake Foster. Special thanks to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the theme music. Join the discussion on our Discord, tweet to us at Album Concept Pod, or for everything else, go to Linktree/Flyover State Park. See you on Side B. This is Flyover State Park.